Welcome back to By the Wayside. On this episode, I speak with cartoonist Ramón Pérez. I talk about Smurfs. We have lots of fun on the Omar Recommends. Don't go anywhere. This is the show that we're doing. And of course, welcome back to By the Wayside. You're going to find out that over the course of this episode, actually right after this opening segment, I have a full beard. Why? Because typically when I record episodes of By the Wayside here at Wayside Comics and Cocktails in Newmarket, Ontario, I do, a piece here, a piece there. Sometimes guests are only available on certain days. I try to utilize my time as best as possible. And in the time that I did my interview with Ramón Pérez, I decided that my beard needed to take a vacation, hence mustache. All right, just want to get that out of the way so nobody's confused. I wanted to touch on super quick about Smurfs. We all love Smurfs, the little blue guys that are 3 apples tall, which is absolutely terrifying. I think they're probably about this big, actually. The microphone size is how big a Smurf would be. So if I'm going to get a Smurf, superimpose a Smurf here, Jordan, do something here. Smurf. I wanted to talk about my favorite Smurf, of course, is Papa Smurf. He's the leader. I love my leaders, and he's got a big old beard, which I don't anymore, and he wears red. Smurfs were created in 1950 by Peyo, which is a pseudonym for a name that I forgot and didn't write down, so that's my fault. They're Belgian. Peyo was Belgian, and he created the Smurfs in 1950. When I was a kid in the 80s and I saw the Smurfs, I thought it was an 80s thing. The cartoon was the 80s, but not the characters. They've been around longer than my mom has been alive. They are also one of the highest grossing franchises of all time. Think about that. From toys, cartoons, mobile games. I remember the mobile game, my goodness. Apparently, I just found this out. There's a new Smurfs movie coming out in 2025. I was not paid to say that. Just want you to be aware. We'll find the date. I'll throw that date up here somewhere. Watch the new Smurfs movie. So I asked around a couple people. I said, hey.
They're also the reason we have the expression, what the Smurf?
This guy here. Sammy Yunin from the podcast My Summer Lair reached out to me and said that his favorite Smurf was Jokey. And Allison Danger reached out to me as well and said her favorite Smurf was Jokey. Don't go anywhere. There is lots on this episode of By the Wayside. I'm speaking with Ramón Pérez. We got the Omar Recommends. Maybe someone will mention Smurfs. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this episode of By the Wayside. Of course, oh my goodness. With me today is guest cartoonist Ramón Pérez. Ramón, thank you very much for being with me today. I really appreciate it. We'll get right into the questions because, as you know, and as everyone else knows that watches the show, I always preempt the guests with the questions.
Okay.
And I got like countless cards for you today, Ramón.
So many.
Countless. There's no end to the questions that I'm about to ask you.
Yeah.
I personally first heard of you with your webcomic, Butternut Squash. Mm-hmm. How did that journey from webcomics sort of talk about your present?
I think Butternut Squash was, it's funny because that comic started as a pitch for Now Magazine.
Okay.
Yeah, because there was a company doing an insert into Now Magazine. They wanted original comics, kind of like a Sunday Funnies insert, and it all kind of fell apart. But I started creating this thing, or this impetus, this idea for this comic, and at the time I wasn't able to get comics work. Mm-hmm. I'd applied, I'd shared my portfolio, no one was hiring. The majority of my work at the time was being done in gaming, so
right on.
RPGs, so Dungeons and Dragons, Rifts, Palladium Fantasy, Innomine, Steve Jackson games, Star Wars, all that stuff. So I was actually getting work, just the comics just didn't want to hire me.
Yeah.
So I had this comic, and at the time, like, the internet was like the wild, wild west back then. You could go out there and just create and build an audience without having to worry about algorithms.
That's true.
And whatnot. I co-wrote it with my buddy Rob, put it out there, and it grew exponentially. Mm-hmm. We had a massive audience in Germany, in Australia, Yeah, it was crazy where it took off. I mean, we had an audience in Toronto to the point where we never put our own photos up online. We wanted to keep ourselves as the cartoon characters, right? And we would actually get recognized in the city because of like, if anybody's ever seen the comic, you have me kind of almost looking like this, just less gray. Rob, who is about a foot shorter than me, we made this like visually identifiable duo. So people would be like, "Are you Ramón and Rob from Butternut Squash?" And we'd be like, "Oh." So it was actually kind of a fun, thing. And the comic got reprinted in various publications over the years, like internationally.
Wow.
So that was my comic storytelling outlet. That was like where I really, finessed my timing, my skill set, even though it was more cartoony than my regular work. That was actually my natural state. That's where how I first drew. Me evolving into more quote unquote realistic is more to get work.
That's why I introduced you as cartoonist.
Yeah. And I've been called that many times, which I love actually. I think it encapsulates the whole thing. Someone who writes and draws their own work, whether it's a Sunday strip or a comic book. But anyways, long story short, in a weird way, that comic got me all kinds of work throughout my career. It springboarded me into doing a monthly comic in Owl Kids magazine. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the title.
We'll find it online. Don't worry.
It's a mystery comic. Oh my God, Max Finder Mysteries, and I did that for 7 years. So that was actually something that paid my bills, helped me
very cool.
Keep doing what I do and having a regular paycheck. It also, I can't remember the exact story, but someone who read that comic also recommended me to Archaea. Because Archaea at the time was looking for someone to adapt Tale of Sand. Because I have a lot of young artists always ask me like, how do you break in? And I'm just like, plant seeds and watch them grow. Like, so whether it's relationships with writers, artists, editors, or just putting your work out there in any capacity, people will find it and share it, and you never know who will come across it and be like, hey, I want to hire this individual to create something for me.
You got to start somewhere.
Exactly.
And just starting is the thing. Start. Just do it.
Yeah, exactly. Just do it. Jump in with both feet. Don't think about it too much, and have fun.
I agree.
Yeah.
As an award-winning artist, your work has been seen across many characters and intellectual properties. Is there one specific at the top of your mind that you want to be remembered for?
I mean, if I were to look at my current body of work and not looking at my own properties, I guess, because obviously I would love to be remembered for my own characters. But looking on the past, I've enjoyed working. I've been lucky. I worked on pretty much all the big Marvel characters in some capacity. Short runs. I'm not a big run guy. Hawkeye was a big joy because I grew up on that character.
Yeah.
He was one of the first comics I picked up actually when I was a kid. It was ElfQuest, West Coast Avengers #1, and I think maybe Solo Avengers, I think it was, which he also starred in back then. So he was a weird character to latch onto, and I think it was maybe the Robin Hood vibe because I was a big Robin Hood fan as a kid.
I could see that.
But I guess if I were to look at my current body of work, that's not my own characters, I would say Tale of Sand is still the work I'm proudest of. And while he's not necessarily a character, I guess, in like the world of IPs these days, I still think I'm proud when I hear that book is either being shared, taught in schools, deconstructed. And that was a very unique moment in my career where you had the right editorial team who kind of backed me and allowed me the freedom to do what I did, and me just being a young punk going and just going, I don't know, I'm just gonna go with my gut, right? And like just create. I mean, luckily it worked out.
Yeah, that's good. It's nice that when, as a creator, that something that you did create is it's the lessons from the book are being shared across the world. And in, like you said, like being taught in classes, that's got to be quite thrilling and really exciting.
Yeah, that's like to this day, I still get people going, I studied your book at this university or this college, which blows my mind because like when I was in college, you mentioned comic books, they'd be like, get out of here.
Yeah.
So, just don't be stupid, ignore comics, and now comics have kind of entered the zeitgeist in a more positive manner.
Yeah.
And seen for what they can potentially bring to the table.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I've had even like people who've come across that book, tears in their eyes, told me, this changed my life. Because the book is interesting because like I was immersed in that book for probably 6 months.
Yeah.
And, like I was just deep in it and just watching old Jim Henson. For those who don't know, it was an old Jim Henson screenplay. So I was watching old DVD collections that supplied by the Henson Company of like him in college. experimenting on
wow.
like cartoon animated shorts using paper and music, and just learning this whole other side to this individual who I only knew as like the Muppets or Dark Crystal. I saw him as the artist he was, struggling at the time trying to get his ideas out, and as an artist working on his book, going through that same journey, I kind of really identified with the subject matter, and what I gleaned from it and put into it as a graphic novel is probably very different than if somebody else would have adapted it. Say, I often compare the screenplay or the story to like a Rorschach test, where you'll get out of it what you see in it. And so I've had people read it and they're like, oh, yeah, it was great. I read it in 5 minutes. There's no words. And other people are like, oh my God, it moved me. So it's just like, it's hilarious. So yeah, one of the works I'm proudest of. And if that one goes down in history as what I'm remembered for, I'm happy for it.
Awesome. That's good. I really like that, especially when you put so much time and effort and you yourself can see yourself in the real person.
Yeah.
I like that. To me, that means
you really have a connection with the work and the journey that for me it was the journey that Jim was going on, but we're very reflective of my own journey at the time, right, which was interesting.
When creating, do you have a preference between interiors, variant covers, or writing?
I mean they all scratch a different itch. My first and foremost, I love storytelling, so sequentials are my love. I've learned that I don't want to do them as much on a month-to-month basis. I love the graphic novel format. Like my two favorite, even though I've loved everything I've done to one degree or another, I've been very lucky to work with great writers and collaborators. The most fun I've ever had is when I worked on like Tale of Sand or Jane, which was an adaptation of Jane Eyre, where I was given the freedom to like adapt and work with the writer, and given no page count, I was able to build out the story how I saw fit. So that's my favorite part, just storytelling in general. Variant covers scratch that graphic design impactful itch where it's like, how do I create a cover that someone's going to walk by and go, ooh, what is that? I want to go see that. So I love doing that. That's the graphic designer in me. That's the marketer in me. Like, how do I catch, how do I catch someone's attention with a cover and have fun with it? And it also allows me to do a take. Like, while I've never worked on a Batman comic, I've done Batman now a couple of times on a cover. So it's like, here's my version of Batman. And, maybe one day I'd love to do an interior for sure.
Well, that one that you did is, when someone asks me about this isn't, I'm not patting you on the back here, and this isn't patting of the guests or anything, but when someone asks me about a Batman cover, I think of that one that you did with the older.
The cowl?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that was for.
That was for it was like a retelling of the first Batman story.
When someone asks, not that anyone ever says, what's your favorite Batman cover? But that's the one that I think of.
Thank you.
Specifically that one.
If it's not obvious, I riffed off of the old Shadow. Batman is based on, or roughly, loosely based on aspects of the Shadow. When you get asked to do a variant of Batman, and usually when you do a variant, they don't really give you context.
Okay.
They just do whatever you want, which is both liberating and frustrating because that's a massive landscape. So when I do a narrative cover, at least I have like the parameters of, this is the story, this is what I'm trying to encapsulate.
Yes.
So with Batman, I was like, I gotta do a Batman cover. What am I doing here? Like, is it like, I knew it took place in the 1940s or 30s, so am I gonna have thugs on the cover? I had all kinds of like old cars with guys with guns, Batman coming down for like your classic old early detective covers. I was like, they're never gonna choose this one. And so like when the editor came in, it was like, that's what I want. And I was like, wow, that aligned. Because it was like I threw it in going, they're not going to choose. They're going to want the one that where, Gatling guns and Batman and things are happening. And I'm like, oh, they chose. I'm like, that's really nice. So it's awesome when an editor kind of sees that vision and allows you that moment. So, and then also, and then writing is something I've never done on a monthly, except for when I worked on Nova. It gave me a peek into that side of the industry, which it's interesting. I don't think I'd ever want to write for mainstream comics, just from my base. Not that it was a bad experience, but I'm like, I have a sci-fi, I have a thriller I want to do. I want a crime story. So like,
it's not character specific. It's just this really great idea.
Yeah, and that's kind of that kind of goes back to my sequentials and going like. Because I also changed my style a bit depending on stories. As I mentioned earlier, I was like, I'd like to take that the coming decade to go like, okay, here are the stories I've been playing with for years now.
Yeah.
I want to go play with them and write these and hopefully get them out to an audience. And first and foremost, sequential would be the favorite.
So while you're sitting here talking with me, and I think you are like almost number 30 of the shows that I've done, every single person that I've spoken to is Canadian. Whether it's podcasters, small business owners, comic book creators, cartoonists like yourself, even playwrights, cosplayers, they're all Canadian.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
When someone mentions comic book creators and they're Canadians, why are people so surprised by that?
Surprised that they're Canadian?
That they're Canadian.
That's interesting.
I mean, you yourself, Canadian.
Yeah.
Kalman Andrzejowski,
Canadian.
who also part of R.A.I.D,
Yeah.
Canadian. Tom Grummett. Like, it's these people that, like, they're influential in this massive section of comic books. That, like, Ty Templeton, Canadian. Like, people, like,
one of the co-creators of Superman, Canadian.
It's weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
why are people so surprised that when you tell them that they're Canadian?
It could be like, even like in film and television, so many actors, comedians, are Canadian. People don't know it. If I were to tie this down to like an experience, as a personal experience for me, is like when I grew up, I read comics, I picked up comics. I never thought it would be something, even up to the point of college, I never thought it would be a career choice for me, because I was like, oh, that's something that happens somewhere in America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is New York. It's based in, this area. And I'm not going to go live there. I don't want to go live there.
Yeah.
So it just became, I just didn't understand it. So, and then when I went to college for art, I met two key figures, which maybe not necessarily changed the course of my life, but definitely informed me. One was a friend, Tom Basner, who works in animation these days, and he had gone for a year to the Kubert School in New York and couldn't afford to return because it was quite expensive. Couldn't afford to return for a second year, so he went to Sheridan, which is where I went. He was a guy who was an electrician and kind of wanted to change careers and go forward that way. And the other guy was a fellow by the name of Larry McDougall, who's done beautiful art books, but he used to work in RPGs, doing illustrations for role-playing games. And these two individuals are like, oh, I can do this, and I don't have to be there. That could kind of maybe go to the larger mass. It's like, it's Hollywood, it's Marvel. They are located in the U.S., so clearly they're not Canadian.
Yes. Right.
And that could be maybe some mental avenue there. I don't know. Like, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of us. I feel like, I think it's, I always joke, I think it's the winter. We need to entertain ourselves a little bit, whether it's through comedy or art or something. For me, growing up, art was an escape to create worlds and do things. And I think we're just a very creative people up here.
We're like the ninjas of the creative arts.
I think so.
No one ever
exactly. Yeah. I like that. We just swoop in. No one believes a Canadian did it.
Stick around, because we have lots more coming up with Ramón Pérez right after this.
This is By the Wayside, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to this episode. Of course, there's so much I want to talk about, and we only have so much time to talk about it in. Ramón Pérez is still with me, but we're gonna go from the cartoonist, and we're gonna kind of shift to the other aspect of your life. You are managing director of R.A.I.D.
Yes.
So first question, what is R.A.I.D?
R.A.I.D is so many things these days. It's the Royal Academy of Illustration Design, which is the name that it was blessed with by Chip Zdarsky and crew back when it was formed in 2002. It was 4 individuals who wanted to basically have a space and work together. 3 of them were graduates from Sheridan. Yeah, they created the space, and I was the first replacement that came in. I replaced Kagan McLeod. We're a co-working space in Toronto, basically on Queen West. But since about 2018, we've delved into publishing. So I'm trying to create an avenue for creators to get their work out there. Offer guidance, offer editorial support, offer financial support if we can, avenues for distribution, that kind of thing. We're still growing. We're still figuring it out. We also work as a creative agency. For years, people would call R.A.I.D and go, hey, I need a logo done. I need an ad, a comic strip, whatever. So we've taken what happened organically and pushing towards doing it. Yeah, so we've been going and pushing towards doing that more aggressively. And so we have our Rolodex of our in-house team, but we also have the greater network that we've established over close to 20 years, or over 20 years now, of being R.A.I.D. So we've done, ads for like Tech Savvy. We've worked with Chorus. We've worked with a variety of different companies. And I'll just build the team out depending on who is calling. So if it's, they need a web infomercial, I'm like, okay, so I need an animator, I need this. So I'll put the team together, and R.A.I.D will run it, and we use the profits from that to subsidize the publishing side. So we'll use that to I always kind of joke we're using the money from evil to do good, right? So You know, we take the profits from the corporate work and we invest in creators and try to put their work out there in that capacity. So those are the two other silos now. So we have the three: the co-working, the creative agency, and the publishing side of things.
Yeah.
And also with our current location on Queen West, we also have a gallery and coffee shop, which we use to try to promote different artists and also just connect with the public in a different manner.
Yeah.
So we do different art shows, try to inform people about the side of comics they might not necessarily always know, basically.
Yeah. It's taking that creative community and sort of opening it up for the broader community of, passerbys, people not in the know, people interested in what's going on here at
Exactly. R.A.I.D. And that's happened a lot since we've moved to our current location where we have a public facing space. Because before 2018, we were the third story of an old brownstone. So we kind of like operate in this little secret alcove upstairs. But now it's like people walk by and they discover, they're like, oh, what's behind that door? It says R.A.I.D Studio, what is that? And many of the new current members are people who just discovered us by walking by.
Oh, cool.
You know, whether it's, so we have journalists now, we have animators. We're not necessarily just comics.
Yeah.
For a while we were dominantly comics, which I love. But now we have such a nice mixed array of creatives that actually kind of brings, I think, an interesting dynamic because you're just having a cross-pollination of people from different walks of life. A lot of them love comics, so there's still that kind of the roots in comics, but there's so much more going on there now, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, creativity isn't just in comic books. It's not just in artwork. There's so much more under the umbrella of creativity.
Yeah.
And I mean, not to toot my own horn here, but that the mission statement of the show is to introduce you, the audience, to creative people.
Yeah.
So like I had said, we have interviewed comic book creators, cosplayers, playwrights, small business owners. You know, like the umbrella of creativity is massive. So I could see how taking R.A.I.D and becoming the home for creativity. Don't steal it. That's my idea, by the way.
I call it an ecosystem for creatives.
Okay.
But I like that. Maybe I will steal.
Well, this is on the internet, so no, you can't. You answered every single one of my questions, Ramón, in that one question.
Oh, I did? Okay.
I'm not going to bother answering.
I can expand on something you want. Okay.
No, just too much. So I'll ask this. I'll go right to the last question.
Okay.
What's next for R.A.I.D?
It's funny. R.A.I.D's been around, like I said, I think 23 years now?
23 years.
I think 2002. Is that my math right? I think so.
Well, you asked me math, so no, on the spot.
I believe it is. Yeah, I think it's 23 years. You know, it's been interesting coming outside of the global pandemic and just restructuring and building something. It's hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially something community based and really, where people are still in this kind of phase of I want to work from home. It's comfortable. It's safe. Whatever it is. So I think it's just for R.A.I.D. I think it's just stabilizing and having that foundation strong enough where as we make larger leaps into other areas or even the areas we're in, as a small publisher, we want to get our books out to as many creators as possible, but it's we also don't want to, go bankrupt doing it.
Of course.
Right. So it's like trying to make the right moves, the educated moves. Like I'm a weird balance of like, I'll jump in with 2 feet and like into the deep end, not knowing what the hell I'm doing. But I'm also the guy who's like, well, I still want to be smart about that dive. I'm looking for the rocks. I'm looking for the sharks or whatever it might be. So we have been doing, we've lived this long. I feel like I'd love for R.A.I.D to be something that lives beyond me and becomes something which represents community and opportunity for creators. And that's my biggest goal with it.
It seems that just like any parent would want to see their child grow up and be better than themselves.
Exactly.
And as you've described, it's been around for, let's say, 20 plus years. Since it's bypassed the math completely. It's an ever evolving and growing entity of creativity.
Yeah.
So while you have goals for the future, you never know where it's going to go. Because if you take your story about how people were like, I mentioned you to this editor, I mentioned you this, you never know where R.A.I.D's going to go.
You never know.
Everything came full circle. I like how the interview started there and it ended there. Ramón, thank you so much for taking the time to spend 20 minutes with me talking about you, talking about R.A.I.D, and coming up to Newmarket to Wayside Comics and Cocktails.
It's always a pleasure.
I know that it's a journey sometimes.
Oh.
Toronto traffic isn't the best, but it is what it is. Ramón, thanks again. I appreciate it.
Real pleasure, man.
Awesome.
Having you here.
Stick around. We got lots more in this episode, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to this episode of By the Wayside. I, of course, am your horse. I'm a horse, Jordan Middlebrook, and every episode is not complete without an Omar Recommends. Today is no exception. Omar, are you around here today to recommend something?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, he's here. Hey, Omar.
How's it going, Jordan?
All right, and you?
Good.
So
You're looking a little hoarse.
we could just end the show right there. That's absolutely hilarious.
Wow.
What do you have to recommend today, Omar?
Why a long face? Sorry, I got two. Like I don't got two, but it's like I'm going to show you two things because it's a series.
Oh.
So what I have to recommend today is Astro City by Kurt Busiek. So this is an amazing series. I like the covers that they did on these trade paperbacks. They're very colorful. They kind of show what the world is about. So Astro City is just kind of a superhero analog world where they're analogs for superheroes you already know. Like they have their like Superman analog, the Samaritan, they have their Batman analog, Jack in the Box. The beautiful thing about Astro City is that Kurt Busiek can do this one amazing thing, which is take stories and situations you're very familiar with and just reinfuse them with this beautiful new life and really remind you why superhero comics can be amazing. It's wonderful storytelling. And like I said, it's a reminder of why superhero comics are so good. One of my favorite, the first issue of Astro City is about the Samaritan. He's the Superman analog, and it's about how he counts his day in seconds. And he's writing for the paper and doing all that, but he's so fast that he's like kind of timing out all of his super heroics and trying to make sure he can do everything and still get his job done and find that balance of everything. And it's a really interesting way of going into like a superhero's mind who can do all these things and delving into his psyche. So he's taking something very familiar, but like just telling you a similar story with a different perspective. And that's the kind of the crux of Astro City. But it's just phenomenal. And I really, really recommend anybody who either loves superhero stories or needs to be reminded why they enjoyed superhero stories at one point to check out Astro City. Not only do they have all these beautiful covers by Alex Ross, but like I said, it's just a journey in storytelling.
When Astro City first debuted in the 90s, if I remember correctly, I got a hair in my mouth. Well, it's a mustache hair. Gross. Anyway, you can tune out any time now. That this was one of the first comic books that said, this is real life with superheroes in it. It was kind of before when the X-Men movie came out in the early aughts. This is what would happen if the X-Men existed in the real life. This was one of the first comic books that said, this is what would happen if superheroes existed in the real world.
Yeah, the perspective on this is very like boots to the ground. And again, you're dealing a lot more with, I think, people's character psyches and who they are as people. And you get all the super heroics, but you also get the other side of them a little bit harder than what you normally see in a comic. It kind of de-glamorizes a lot of things.
Okay, maybe I'm just misremembering what the story was.
But no, there's definitely a lot of that as well. As you're living in these like fictional places with all these people doing amazing things, all these like god analogs and things like that. But here you're just taking the same things and doing them from a different perspective, and that's the beautiful part.
Awesome. That's it. That's all you get for today's Omar Recommends.
Astro City, check it out. There's so many stories in there. It's definitely a journey, but one worth going on. And again, it's a reminder why superhero stories can be so, so good. If you don't like superhero stories, if you feel like you've grown out of them, check out Astro City. It will change your mind and will make you remember why you enjoyed these stories so much, especially as an adult. Like, you will get a lot out of it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Omar. I appreciate that.
No worries.
Now you can do your thing.
Oh, and we will catch you guys by the wayside.
I know I don't need to remind you, but now it's a thing.
Nay.
While we all know that my favorite Smurf is Papa Smurf, I talked about some other people whose favorite Smurf was Jokey Smurf. Omar, shop owner of Wayside Comics. In case no one's ever met him before, who's your favorite Smurf?
I gotta agree with you. I gotta go Papa Smurf. Yeah, he gets the red hat in the pants. Come on.
Yeah, he's different.
Yeah, he contrasts. It's great.
That's it. Bye.
Yeah.
I had talked about Smurfs being one of the highest grossing franchises of all time. Omar was kind enough to pop out of anywhere, which is what he typically is going to start doing, I guess, in the future, and was able to present to me that Smurfs actually exist in comic book form. I don't think I knew this. So that's just some more Smurfs for you that just relates to today's episode. I don't know what you did.